As you look at someone like Jay Powell, we look at his background, what his experience is. He's been on the Fed for some time. He comes really out of private equity, Carlyle, and then originally Dillon Reed.
Well, he was also in the Treasury Committee. He had a lot of commitment to public service as well.
As far as you're concerned, as you look at it, is he prepared to deal with a crisis? It's one thing to manage the Fed when it's sort of humming along, but we've had to rely upon Fed chairs from time to time to really deal with a substantial downturn. Is there anything in Jay Powell's background that prepares him for that?
Oh, I think so, too. First of all, nobody is very well prepared for the most critical moment that they would ever have in anyone's career. I know when you train for the marathon, you run 5 miles, 10 miles, maybe you do one 20-mile run, but you don't run 26 miles every day to train for the marathon. That's where you want to peak. So, I mean, his background is a terrific background. Again, a lot of government service in the Fed, service in the private sector. I think he's a very, very credible candidate. There were other credible candidates as well, but I am not one bit disappointed if it turns out to be Jay Powell.
And you're not concerned about his lack of a PhD. There's a lot of talk about whether you need a PhD, particularly as we're in really unprecedented times. When we have a huge balance sheet we're unwinding, there are a lot of things going on with central banks we haven't seen before.
I don't know what his dissertation would have been on, but the failure to complete that dissertation, I don't think that's, sometimes I feel that people with PhDs, and believe me, I'm not anti-intellectual. I have a law degree. My kids are went to graduate school. I'm not against people who have PhDs, but sometimes I wish people who only had PhDs had a little bit more life and professional and business experience. I think Jay's background, he also has a law degree, and he has as broad a background and preparation for this as anybody has in the last several decades. And by the way, we have been really, this country's been blessed. At the last couple of Fed chair people who got us through the crisis and its aftermath had done a pretty good job. If you'd gone back 10 years ago and had prophesied where we would be, where the economy would be today, people were projecting that we were nearly at the tipping point of going into a great recession. And you know something, there were hard times, but it didn't quite get that deep, and it didn't get quite that severe. And it wasn't fiscal policy that got us through most of that. It was the monetary policy and the extraordinary actions, some of which were invented by the people who occupied that chair.